Um, it should go viral, so look for it. If you get a feed from me or anybody else, make sure this message get around because Fox News isn't going to report it, you know, because they didn't drink the orange Kool-Aid and they down with the orange man. So so it's up to the people to let the truth get out. Um, all right, it's 2 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. The mic is live. We want to send a shout out to India S. Cologne for sending that video out and letting people know what's going on. We got our brother Gil Scott Heron once again coming by and taking over the mic. If the music is too loud, I ask you again to let me know so that I can adjust it. And we won't be competing with our brother Gil. But that should be loud enough. Hopefully that's loud enough. That's Gil Scott Heron, and the revolution will not be televised because the revolution has to take place in your mind, ladies and gentlemen. And that's what we're about here at the Mic is Live, giving you the pertinent information and thought-provocative subject matter so that you can stimulate your mind and get it right and cause that revolution to stop you thinking and conforming to a certain way that the society seems to have everybody going. It's like you talk to the average person and they're so caught up in what's going on and they don't even realize who they are themselves. You ask a person, who are you? And the first thing they want to tell you is the job that they work. That's not who you are. And it's not healthy for you to think that your job is who you are, because once that job ends, you get fired, laid off, or the business goes up, belly up, and you're without a job. You're without a personality. You're nobody. So, it's like we're all zombies nowadays, and it's a shame, and it's really imperative that we realize that we are more than just the sum of our parts, and we belong to something bigger and greater than ourselves. The mic is live today, ladies and gentlemen, at 2 o'clock as usual. I like to be on time. I stress being on time. I want to thank the people that have supported me so far, who come out and been a part of the discussion, left comments, and watched the video on my YouTube channel. Those of you who subscribe, I hope you keep it up. Please keep letting your friends know that we're out here, because as I tell you each week, we want to get away from this Facebook platform and develop the radio station. Things are moving slowly, but they are moving. We just need more subscribers. We hope that you guys can get your friends and family to subscribe to the network, to our YouTube channel. We use this Facebook platform, but it's the YouTube channel that we're going to utilize so that we can get the sponsors to come out and hopefully sponsor the programming, and we'll be able to get the station running on a 24-hour basis. We got some ideas and things that we would like to present. It's going to focus on different areas. Like my platform is basically on melanin and Nubian people, empowerment and recognition of self. But we're going to have some other programmings from different people, entertainment, and all kinds of things. So we just hope that you guys can encourage your friends and family to support our work, support our platform, so that we can build something for us, by us, and we can, just keep the movement going. A lot of things are happening in the news. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends don't even like to watch the news. Excuse me. A lot of my friends don't like to watch the news, and I personally don't really like to get into it nowadays because it's like propaganda. They show the same thing. Each network said the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing and doing the same thing. But I do like to keep abreast of things and stay on top of things. We got so much happening. You see, we opened up with our sister, India Cologne. So we want to send a shout out to the people of Puerto Rico. We want to send a shout out to the people of Florida and the people of Texas. And we understand that a new hurricane has just hit the Gulf Coast, and so there are concerns down in New Orleans and in that area, Alabama, and the coastal regions of the Gulf. And our prayers are with those people down there. You know, if you're black or you're brown and you're dark-skinned people, you know you got to fend for yourself. You see what's going on. You know, so we hope you guys pull together. And the storm wasn't as bad as Maria or the others, but it is life-threatening, and we hope that you guys evacuated the coast and taking preparations to deal with it. So let's be aware that this is happening, Leroy Nation. Let's be ready to move and help our people down there, because we know they're not going to get the help from the government that they should. You know, we saw that disgraceful video. I don't know how many people saw it. I'm pretty sure everybody's up to speed on it by now. But we saw that disgraceful video that Donald Trump went down to Puerto Rico 3 weeks after the storm. He goes down there with this phony stage scene, you know, with these phony people, a small crowd of hand-picked people, you know, because, you know, I've been around those situations. You know, I remember working at York College in the theater, and we used to have to prepare for the arrival. I think Jesse Jackson was running for president at the time. We had the mayor come through sometime. We had some big people come through in my tenure as the chief engineer of the auditorium there, of the Performing Arts Center. And I know they don't just let any old body around when these officials come through. In fact, myself and my staff and the people that were working closely with the events, we had to get a security clearance. We had to go through background checks months before these individuals came to visit. So I know those people that were around the Orange Man down in Puerto Rico, they were just some hand-picked people. They weren't people that were really suffering or out in the outskirts, from the outskirts of the island. And they, you know, it just kills me. You know, I don't put nothing past him. So when he does things, I'm not surprised in terms of how low he will stoop. But what kills me is the way that people accept this from him and be a part of it. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said, a man can't disrespect you unless you allow it. You know, and it just killed me how those people stood around cheering and wanting to touch him and be a part of that whole situation, when it was so disrespectful and so demeaning and degrading in terms of what they needed, the help and the aid that they needed. You know, that man stood, he didn't visit for 3 weeks. It took him 3 weeks to get there. And when he got there, all he did was throw stuff at them. He didn't shake any hands. He didn't touch anybody. And you look at the old footage from even George Bush, the way he handled Katrina. He still went hugging people, you know, handing out supplies, wading through water. Barack Obama did the same thing. Bill Clinton did the same thing. This man didn't even shake not one hand. He didn't want to touch nobody. He didn't want to be around anybody. He threw paper towels at people. Now you wait, think about it. You waiting for help. You waiting for electricity. You waiting for food. You're waiting for water. You're waiting for access to your money. You're waiting for power so that you could get your dialysis and your medicine and your hospitals up and running. And this guy waits 3 weeks, have you waiting 3 weeks, and when he does finally come, all he does is throw stuff at you. He throws paper towels and bags of sugar and things. It's like he's on a tour or something, a world tour, throwing T-shirts in the crowd. It was disgraceful. You know, what was more disgraceful is that the people stood for it. The people took it. You know, and that's what I was saying earlier. You know. And this is no slight on the Puerto Rican people, but you know me, you know, I don't mess around, I don't BS, you know, I lay it out the way it is, and I say it the way it is, I say it from my heart, you know. My brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico, I hope this is a wake-up call for you. Because a lot of you, for a long time, have been caping for this white supremacy ideals. Y'all, a lot of y'all, I'm not saying all, but a lot of y'all walk around, thinking that, y'all don't have no African in your blood. A lot of y'all got that black grandmother that y'all shove in the closet every time company come over because y'all don't want to associate with the African people. But y'all need to get off that BS and stop caping for these white supremacists and thinking that you're going to get your honorary white card. Because you see, when disaster hits and you need help, there's nobody around but us, your original family. So, a lot of y'all asked for this and y'all got what y'all asked for. Y'all thought y'all was going to be down with the honorary white card and thought that, my man was going to hook y'all up. But you see how he treating y'all. You see what he thinks of y'all. You are not in the plan of making America white again. All right? So get that thought out of your head. Open the closet, pull black grandma out, and respect her and learn about your heritage and who you truly come from. Y'all need to understand that. And stop BSing, man. Because this is disgraceful the way this man treated y'all. And a lot of them was still down with it, man. Smiling in this man's face. And he showed y'all what he thought about y'all. He showed y'all how he felt about y'all as a people and as a nation. And it's disgraceful when you be down with your own disrespect, That's the part that got me. It wasn't so much that he acted like he is, I don't expect anything other than what he is. I remember in my martial arts days, the sensei would always tell the proverb of the snake on the ground, and the man coming along and seeing the snake on the ground and picking him up, thinking he's going to do something compassionate and warm the snake up. And the snake bit him, and he looked at the snake and said, "Yo, I'm trying to help you. Why you bite me?" And the snake said, "It's in my nature. That's my nature. That's who I am." So don't be surprised when this snake bites you. I'm not surprised when this snake lashes out and bites people. I'm surprised that people are continuously picking up this snake and putting it in his pocket after they see how he done bit the next man. Y'all got to get off that kick, man. Y'all really do. Y'all really got to get off that kick, So, again, we want to send a shout out to the people of Puerto Rico if you can help. Look for the hotlines. There are many hotlines and people that are taking active, doing things actively to get the supplies and get the help down there to those people. Again, I don't trust the Red Cross. I heard too many horror stories about them. But if you can get to one of the grassroots organizations that are doing things on their own, don't trust the government organizations, because as you can see from the video that our sister Cologne put up, they're not getting the help. The FEMA personnel, the Army Corps engineers, and all these other people are sitting in the hotel chilling on the taxpayer dime. And she's just not no random person. She is in the military, from what I understand. She just took the time out on her own to go. That was the only way she was able to get in the hotel, because she was military. And the hotels aren't even open to the civilians. The hotels are only open to the government personnel, and you see how they're taking advantage. So, I say stick with the grassroots organization and get these people some of the help that they need. Also in the news, I know y'all heard the big news. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, being busted. He was outed this week by NBC for calling the president a moron. All I can say is, Rex, dust off the resume. You came out with that old phony press conference talking about you support the president and all that. Remember, everybody that he kicked to the curb did that before he let them go. So Rex, dust off the resume. Even though you told the truth, man. I understand this was after a briefing that they were trying to bring him up to speed on some things, and he just wasn't getting it. And Rex came out, probably spoke off the cuff. You know how you get frustrated with somebody. Your kids do something wrong. You love them. But underneath your breath, you say, Lord, that can't be my genes. You're stupid. And that was probably one of those moments that Rex had when he came out of the meeting dealing with that nut. He probably just said, freaking moron. It just happened to be a reporter around that caught it. So own up to it, Rex. We understand. We know the man's a moron. We see the way his wife deals with him. We see the way the people around him deal with him. So own up to it, my man. Also, in the news, we're finding out more. There's more to the airplane gate. More and more officials are being busted for chartering personal flights, using our tax dollars so they can chill, chartering private aircraft with oil companies and different things, getting the oil companies and the executives getting their air by chartering their planes for them. This is what's going on. This man promised to drain the swamp, but now we're seeing that he's the biggest snake in the swamp. And remember the proverb, ladies and gentlemen, don't put the snake in your pocket. I don't care how cold he looks. Leave that snake on the ground because it's his nature to bite you in the end. And I mean that literally, figuratively. Also in the news, we still dealing with the Russia investigation. Robert Mueller, the special investigator, is now reaching out to the person of interest in England that wrote the dossier about the whole interference of the Russians in the American election. So it's getting close, ladies and gentlemen. The fireworks are starting. I understand that they're going to try to turn certain people. Certain people are being looked at and targeted to turn on this guy. And I can imagine, many of them will, because when you're being berated and being put down and being talked to in a dismissive manner, you hold a grudge. It's like that old mafia saying, which is the better Don, the one that's feared or the one that's loved? And the one that's loved, his men will do anything for him, anytime, anywhere, even if it means self-sacrifice. Whereas the Don that's feared, as soon as a person feels safe, they're going to cut his throat. So this man, he's in trouble. He's in trouble. I won't go as far as some people thinking that he's going to be impeached and all that, but it's not looking good for him. And this Russia thing is dogging him. It's on his tails, on his trail, and it's not letting up. It's not letting up at all. Also, in the news, we're looking at so much stuff going on in the sports world. We know that the commissioner of basketball came out with a statement saying that he expects and demands that all the basketball players stand and respect the flag. And we did the show last week, and we talked about how it's very important that we say the narrative on this thing and don't let it be hijacked by mainstream media. A lot of the players didn't kneel. They locked arms and showed solidarity, which is cool. But at the same time, we need to make people understand that this has nothing, and we need to keep driving the narrative home. This has nothing to do with the flag. It has nothing to do with the soldiers. It has everything and all to do with the disproportionate amount of African Americans being murdered by the police, unarmed individuals who are surrendering, being beaten, bitten by dogs, shot and killed and murdered, men, women, and children. And we need to keep that narrative going. Now, this is not about the American flag at all. It's not about the soldiers. It's not about disrespecting the anthem, even though the anthem isn't written for us, by us, about us. This is about police brutality. It's about inequity in law enforcement and our society. So, we have all these different things going on. I understand that there were two young men I saw a video of two young men who decided to kneel during the national anthem. And out of nowhere, this white girl comes up to them. Old white girl, Becky, comes up to them, and she's yelling at them, and then she throws her soda on them. Now, they better than me, because that little girl would have been tossed from the bleachers. I'm going to tell you now, if that was me. I don't know what the outcome was. I don't know if they complained and had her arrested, but how dare she? Like, who are you? You know, you're talking about America, the principles of America, the ideals of America. And here, two American citizens taking part in their peaceful right to protest, and you decide to get violent. Like, you see, and this is my problem I have with people when they talk that non-violent stuff to me. You know, love trumps hate and all this other nonsense, man. You know, you better get real, man. You better get real. I mean, that was a great talking point, great sound bite from Michelle. When they go low, you go high. But my motto is when they go low, you kick them in the nuts, man. You know, we need to stop with that nonsense, man, because, you know, that could have been easily somebody coming up to them young men and shooting them. You know, you got to be ready to defend yourself and make people understand. Like, I would love to sit down and talk to you and have discourse, a respectful, honorable discourse. But if you put your hands on me, if you violate me physically, there's going to be a problem, you know. All you torch-carrying, slogan-shouting, neo-Nazi, KKK, little punk wannabes, you know, you can say what you want, but the minute you step across that line and start pointing guns and carrying axes and sticks and stones, there's going to be a problem. And that message needs to be said. It needs to be said loud, and so that they can hear it clearly. That, you know, like I said, we can have an honorable and honest discourse, but the moment you start getting physical, I'm going to do what I have to do to protect myself and the lives of my family. That's just the way it is, you know. And if anybody has a problem with that, well, then I suggest you go see a psychiatrist, because that ain't my problem. My problem is staying alive and staying healthy. You know, it's just that simple. You know, two young men just kneeling, you know, not bothering nobody, not looking at these women, not saying nothing to them. And they come from their seats, come down there yelling at them and throwing soda on them. Come on, man. Not in my America. You know, not in my America. It just don't work that way. You know, and this thing is like really getting out of hand, you know, where people can't protest and say what they have to say without being accosted and being set upon by violent nutbags. And that's basically what it is. Anytime you take it upon yourself to feel that you have the right to impose your will on somebody else physically, there's something wrong with you mentally. All right? You're mentally unstable. You know, you're a danger to yourself and you're a danger to society. It's just that simple. You know? And I'm looking at this whole controversy with Cam Newton. You know, and I listened to the audio. Young lady asked a very intelligent question, very enlightened in terms of sports, and it took him by surprise. Because let's face it, even though things are changing, even though more and more women are getting into sports, it's quite disarming and surprising when a woman is in depth in the sport and knows certain things. And he made the crack, you know, it just sounds funny coming from a female, you know, that you know you're talking about, you know, sports in a certain way. And now there's this big brouhaha. I see Babs has joined me. How you doing, Babs? Good to see you. Now there's this big brouhaha on Cam Newton that he's a sexist and, oh, he made such an offensive remark. And, you know, all that is they trying to humble that brother because it's okay, Babs. You know, they just trying to humble Cam Newton because he was one of the first people that stood up for Colin Kaepernick. You know, what he said was not all that offensive, and they're just trying to make it a big old mess now. He said death to all women or something crazy. You know, he just made a certain remark, you know, said that he was kind of surprised, you know, that a woman knew that much about the sport. You know, and we all know it's no secret. You know, like I said, things are changing, but normally women aren't into sports like that, you know. You know, I live with women that are in the sports. They could break down the Knicks and football better than I can. But when I first found out that they were into it like that, it surprised me. You know, because I didn't, you know, and normally women are not that into sports the way sports was a man thing for years. And like I said, things are changing, but it's still a reality. You know, and what Cam was expressing was his shock that, you know, the young lady had her game up like that. You know, he wasn't trying to be sexist or demeaning to her. But again, that's not what it's about, ladies and gentlemen. You understand? You see, this is how they change the narrative. What they're trying to do is humble this man and make him apologize and make him, you know, to show them that we still have our foot on your neck. White supremacy is still ruling, and we don't want no uppity nigger getting out here being separate and apart from himself. You have to be down with the collective. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care what neighborhood you move to. I don't care what title you have after your name. To us, you still a nigga. You're our nigga, and you're going to behave like our nigga when we tell you to behave like our nigga. It's that simple. That's what's going on with Cam Newton, y'all. And don't even try to rationalize it to be something other than what it is, because that's what it is. You know, and all of this is stemming again. You know, those young men being accosted in L.A. and Cam Newton, and all of this is stemming from Colin Kaepernick and that whole protest of people trying to get some recognition on the conditions of black and Nubian people in this country. You know, we need to keep that narrative going, and we need to let people know that this is how it is, and this is what it is, and this is how it's going to be until some recognition is drawn to this controversial topic. Well, we are not going away. The boycott on the NFL is not going away. The boycott on other sports and other arenas, the boycott and standing for justice is not going away. We're going to be here. We're going to stay here, and you're going to recognize us, or there's going to be hell to pay. That's right. That's right. This is the real world, Babs. You said it right. And we make up 70% of the NFL. Can you imagine if every black player in the NFL said that they're not going to stand for the anthem? They're basically not going to play until Colin Kaepernick get a gig and his issues are recognized. Can you imagine the impact on the NFL, on the NBA? On the National Baseball League, the NBL and the ABL. Come on now, we gotta start understanding and recognizing our power. You know, we don't want to change nobody's hearts. You know, that's not possible. Change has to come from within. But we could damn sure make it clear that we're a force to be reckoned with. And that's what I was meaning when I disseminated the new black codes, that we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. We're going to be actively involved. We're not going to march and sing and all these useless gestures, but we're going to do things that are going to make you recognize and see us for the force that we are, economically, politically, and socially. You're going to have to respect us, or you're going to have to go away. That's just the way it is. Okay, finally, in the news, and that's going to lead me into my major topic of discussion. Our hearts and our prayers go out to the people of Las Vegas. And we're going to talk about that briefly. That's not the issue that we want to discuss totally on today's podcast, but we do want to acknowledge that people have died and families have been torn apart. Mothers have been taken away from their children. Fathers have been taken away from their families. You know, children have been killed and are suffering through this whole madness. And we want to acknowledge that happened for whatever reason. Because I, for one, don't believe it's the reason that they're saying. I really don't even believe it's the individual that they're postulating in front of everybody. You know, I've just got too many questions, you know, but before I got into that, I didn't want to be insensitive. I wanted to let people know that there is a humanitarian aspect. Well, for whatever the motive was, whoever is ultimately behind it, they destroyed people's lives, and there are people that are dead. 59 people, I understand, was the last count, and 529 people was severely wounded. And we want to send a shout out to those individuals and to their families, and hope for a speedy recovery for those who have been wounded, and consultation and our condolences to those who have, to the families of those who have lost their lives. It was a terrible tragedy, for someone to have done that heinous act of terrorism, which it was, again, for whatever motive, or whoever the perpetrator really was. Because I, for one, don't believe it was that individual. There are too many unanswered questions, like I said. I mean, this man was old, for one thing. He didn't fit any type of profile in terms of a mass murderer. He was a very wealthy individual living a life of rally. The story keeps changing. I saw one video where the officer was saying that the shots were coming from the mid-level of the building, whereas this man's room was almost at the top. The fact that he can get all these guns, over 400 pounds of ammunition and guns, up to that room where they say he was doing the shooting, the way that the guns were just thrown all over the place. This takes careful planning, ladies and gentlemen. This takes careful planning and careful execution. And the chaos that was just in that room was just too much. He had over 70-something guns and ammunition, yet he only shot from 2 guns. He had all these guns and ammunition that his girlfriend never saw, his brother never saw, nobody in his family ever saw. They said he had a few guns, but this man had an arsenal that could build up an army, but nobody ever knew he had them until that day. And then he had all these explosives that he never used. It's just too much that just don't add up for me. And I caution you in terms of getting caught up in false flags, because remember who we're dealing with. We're dealing with a man who is a master of distraction, and like I said, things are heating up in terms of Russia and the way his presidency is going under. And I wouldn't put it past. I'm not saying it is. Again, there's too many unanswered questions, but I wouldn't put it past this dude to have orchestrated this whole thing so that the nation can go once again into mourning and get caught up in our feelings and forget about him altogether. So I caution you guys, don't go for the okie doke and what is being put in your face on TV, and think for yourself. Look at the evidence and look at things and for what's happening for yourself before you get caught up in your feelings, And the other thing that I'm noticing about this whole incident, they're talking about gun control once again. And even the Republicans are on board with certain regulations against a certain type of gun stock, And this is what I was saying from the very beginning, that and this is what I was afraid of, that when this whole thing happened, that the country was going to get into this whole discussion about gun control, and nobody's talking about mental health. Every time one of these things happen, everybody gets off on about controlling the guns, getting guns off the street, gun violence, this violence, that violence, and nobody's talking about mental health. Just like this whole protest with Colin Kaepernick. The whole narrative has changed from police brutality to the flag and soldiers, and we've got to stop letting ourselves get distracted from the real issues, all right? And I don't want to get onto this thing whereas this man was if he is the guilty party, that you can't blame him because he was mentally ill or whatever. I'm not saying that, okay? But what I am saying is that until we look at issues of mental health in this country, until we attack the real issue of mental health in this country, I don't care how many laws and regulations you have against guns. It's not going to solve the problem of mass murder. All right? We have to look at, and I'm not saying that there aren't issues of gun control that needs to be addressed. I, for one, believe that there are. I believe in the Second Amendment. I don't want nobody taking away my right to bear arms. I don't want, especially what things are nowadays. Any black person talking about, oh, we need to take the guns off the street and get the guns up. You need to go somewhere and get a butter biscuit. Black folk are the last people in the world should be talking about getting rid of all guns. Okay? That's very true, Babs. And I've seen people saying that. If enough of us joined the NRA and started getting our gun licenses, then you'll see a whole nother move about gun control. Then they'll get nervous enough to do something about it. But the fact of the matter is there shouldn't be no black person talking about get rid of no guns. No, what we need to be talking about is gun education, proper respect for the gun, proper knowledge on how to use them. And again, I'm for control to a certain point. I'm for it. If you and this is what part of my discussion is about, mental health issues. If you're a mentally ill individual, there's no such thing of no Second Amendment right for you. There's something wrong with you. If you're a mentally ill individual, would you trust a mentally ill individual with a hammer or a knife? Of course not. So why would you trust them with a gun? So things like that can be legislated. Things like that can be written in the legislation where mentally ill individuals should be barred from having guns. You don't have no Second Amendment right at that point. The right and the freedom and the protection of the public trumps your right to own a gun if you're mentally ill. And that's something that they all can agree on, but they want to politicize it and make it a point of contention. All right? If you've been convicted of a violent crime, certain things can be legislated, but then there's other things that cannot be legislated. Okay? The legal individual is going to obey the law and do the right thing. If a person is of a legal mindset, you don't really need to legislate nothing for them because they're going to do the right thing on general purpose. That's right. In the right hands. You're right, Babs. In the right hands, and this is not, another. I said this before, and some guy got offended and started coming at me because I said it. But with the training I have and the things that the knowledge I have about certain things, I can go in with a knife or a hammer or a hatchet and do just as much damage. All right? So what are we going to regulate hatchets now? Regulate hammers? Or look at me, the individual, and deal with my mental illness that will trigger me to go in and do some nonsense like that. See, we don't want to talk about mental illness in this country because, once again, it gets into the pockets of individuals that can really do something about it. It's just too expensive. If it's too expensive, we shy away from it in this country. If it's going to drive up the medical costs and get into the fight of this Trump care versus Obamacare, we don't want to deal with it. It's the issue, that we don't want to deal with it. And we need to deal with it. And that's what prompted the title for the discussion today. There was a famous doctor that wrote a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay, but I took it a little further. I'm okay, you're okay, but they're not okay. Okay? Everybody want to look at everybody else. I'm okay, my friends are okay, I'm okay, my family's okay, but you're not okay. You know what I'm saying? We want to look at everybody else. It's everybody else's problem but ours. But mental health and mental illness is a problem that affects our whole society, our society as a whole. And we need to really, really look at this issue, and we really need to deal with it seriously. You can go to just about any website. Some of the stats that I pulled off was from the Mental Health of America website, a very good website, and it shows you how very serious this problem is. It says on that website that 1 in 5 adults, that's 40 million Americans, suffer from some form of mental illness, be it depression, anxiety, dementia. The most common, of course, is depression. 8.5 between the years of 2011 and 2014, the number of people suffering from depression has increased from 8.5 to 11.1. That's within 2 years. All right, the number has climbed, and 55% of the people in this country that suffer from mental health issues don't have access to health care, even though the number of people that do have health care because of Obamacare have increased. The number has increased in terms of the people that have access to it, in terms of being able to afford it through their insurance. But at the same time, 55%, more than half of the people that have mental health issues can't get any type of help to deal with these issues. And one of the main problems they're finding is that there's a shortage in the mental health profession. For every one professional to deal with mental health issues, they have to deal with 1,000 people. There's 1,000, so the ratio is 1 per 1,000, one professional per 1,000 people. So, and a lot of that is because of the stigma designed around mental health. There's a stigma designed around it for those that have mental health issues, and there's a stigma designed around individuals that work in the profession. It's not as glamorous to be known that you work with quote unquote crazy people as it is to know that you're a pediatrician or a lawyer. There's stigmas throughout the profession, so therefore there's a shortage. And there's a direct correlation between the lack of professionals, the lack of services, to the amount of people being incarcerated due to mental health issues. The total of individuals in America that are suffering from depression is 350 million total as of this year. The total for people dealing with anxiety is 40 million. All right, so those are some very serious numbers. That means that 1 in every 5 families that have someone that's dealing with these issues. And again, because of the stigma that's attached to it, they either don't seek help or they don't have access to the help that they need, and they're dealing with these issues by themselves. And we're talking across the board here. All right, anxiety, depression, dementia, substance abuse, all of these things are happening within the family structure to just about everybody, women, children, the men, and the elderly. All right, and because of the stigma, people aren't reaching out and getting the help that they need, and particularly for and it's my personal belief that each culture has different hurdles to get around, and particularly speaking to the Nubian or the Melanoid family, we have certain issues, especially when it comes to our children. When you look at the depression and the anxiety that our children have to deal with, just recently there was a case in the news where a young man in the Bronx stabbed 2 of his classmates because they were bullying him. Now, we look at children and we think about our own childhood, and versus what we deal with as adults, and we it's very hard to comprehend the level of anxiety and depression that a child can endure. The things that they have to deal with, but they are under a lot of pressure for their age. The things that they have to deal with, the workload, the school load, the pressure from family to succeed. And these things can trigger different mood swings and different anxieties within children. And the key to all of this, ladies and gentlemen, whether it be children or adults, is communication. When to communicate, how we communicate, what we communicate. All right? There are different triggers that can happen, and we talked about this before. You know, a traumatic experience. It doesn't even have to happen to you. You can bear witness to a traumatic experience. I just recently, a young lady killed herself in my building, and I just noticed the change in the people around me, you know, that were privy to the information and saw these things, you know. It affects people on different levels. So you don't have to go through the traumatic experience. You could just bear witness or hear about it, and it could trigger depression and anxiety, you know. I shared with you guys before, a long time ago, how I used to have anxiety attacks when I was an educator. That's true, very true, Babs. Very different generation. I remember I used to always have anxiety attacks before I would go to work. And I didn't even realize it until one day I had to like catch myself and realize, you know, these panic attacks, you know. And all of these things be going through my mind as to what could happen during the day, you know. And people in high stress jobs with high responsibility, teachers, that's a very, very serious responsibility. A lot of people don't know. They think, oh, teachers have it easy. They get summers off. No, it's not that simple, man. When a teacher leaves their house to go to school to teach a class, they got to deal with the reality that they're going to be in a room with 30 individuals, 30 souls that depend upon them, not only for education, but for safety and control as well. You know, anything can go wrong. You know, and you would have to be standing in front of somebody's parent telling them how you turned your back and their child jumped out the window or got hit with a book or chair or whatever, you know. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but yes, it is very scary, Babs. It's very scary for an individual, and that's very serious, you know. And again, we talk about the problems in law enforcement, but that's the reality that they deal with. You know, you walking out here and you realize you're an officer of the law. People look to you for safety. People look for you for protection. That's a very serious load. Firemen, doctors. You know, like I said, teachers, you know, you got somebody's life in your hands. That's a very scary thing that builds anxiety. It can, and if you fail them, that can lead to depression. Okay? Now, other triggers for depression, there are other triggers for anxiety. I'm just telling you just one or two of them as I experienced them. But there are other things. And again, the key to dealing with these things is communication. You know, and and we talked about this before, not all communication is verbal. Your children aren't going to come to you and tell you that the guy in school is picking on them. Not 9 times out of 10, they're gonna hide that from you due to shame and the other stigmas, and they're gonna carry that. And I'm assuming that's what happened with that young man. He didn't tell anybody. He didn't talk to his mother and father. And sometimes these kids are in situations where they can't. You know, especially if you come from a family where you got a macho pops and he's telling you, you know, you better stand up for yourself and you have to come home and fight me. You know, a lot of times these kids don't report what's happening to them. And that builds up to them. And every single day they have to think about going to this place where they got to spend 8 hours being pushed around, talked about, picked on, and bullied. That leads to depression. That leads to anxiety. And when a person reaches their limit mentally where they can't take no more, they lash out and do adverse things. They do mass shootings, mass murders. They bomb places. All right, they stab people. They do all sorts of crazy things. And it's not because guns are easily accessible or there's not enough legislation. It's because the mental health aspect of our society is never discussed and it's never dealt with. You know, I just came back from Atlantic City, And the one thing that struck me, had a great time, fun and everything, but the one thing that struck me as I walked around the town, the amount of homeless people that were out there, and the amount of mentally ill, just mentally ill individuals, people that would sit and talk to themselves, rocking back and forth, doing adverse physical movements and gestures. And it just struck me how nobody's helping these people. You know, this is a place where money is basically the economy, you know, making money, and these casinos are popping up, and you can look and tell who was a tourist and who lived in the town. And to me, that's crazy. You know, when the tourists are doing better than the people that live in the town that's making the money. That's all because nobody's helping them. Nobody's addressing the issue. Nobody wants to talk about mental health. Mass shooting, oh, it's the guns. We got to get the guns. It's gun violence. Oh, I lived around guns my whole life. My dad had a rifle. I'll never forget. My dad had a old army rifle with the stock and everything in the closet and in the attic. My sister's room was right off of the attic. The four boys had the big room. Bobby, you know what I'm talking about. And my older sister had the room to the left. Attic didn't have no lock on it. The gun was just in a satchel. Wasn't locked or anything. And all the years that we lived in that house, nobody ever went in there and messed with that gun. Nobody ever went in there, took it out, and put bullets in it, and no accidental shootings and none of that. Why? Because we were taught from an early age to respect that rifle, to respect the power of that rifle. Okay? Proper education. So it's not always, you know, and again, there are some things we can do in terms of gun control and making sure these issues are dealt with. But it's not always about legislations on the gun. You know, we have to step back and we have to look at the mental illness of the American people. You know, we have to look at the mental illness that is rampant in our nation. 8.5 to from 2011 to 2014, 8.5. In 2011, the amount of children that were suffering from mental illness was 8.5. And in 2014, it rose to 11.1. Okay, 80% of those children go without treatment. Mental illness in children is very real, and they're not being helped. They're not being treated. Okay, when we look at women, you know, women are a bit more complicated. You know, there are different triggers for women. You know, their family responsibility, social responsibility. You know, there's certain ethical responsibilities that are thrust upon women that nobody else get. You know, women have for years, and this is cross-culturally, you know, have been the centerpiece of the family. You know, so when her mental health breaks down, then basically the family breaks down. All right, 12 million women suffer from depression. And that age range is from 25 to 44 years old. All right, and again, there are many factors, but some of the most common factors are the pressures from work, pressures from family, and postpartum depression. After childbirth, women experience a certain amount of depression, and still some type of there's still some studies in terms of why that happened. It could be some type of separation anxiety of having that fetus inside them for so long and then having it taken away from them. You know, there's a certain amount of loneliness that they could feel. But that's the age range from 25 to 44. And men suffer from mental illness as well. You know, 79% of all suicides are committed by men are done because of depression and mental illness. All right. So this is something that's cross-cultural, cross-gender, and across the age spectrum as well. So this is a very serious issue that we really need to stop turning our backs on. 1.34 million people 65 or older suffers from depression. That's why it's very important to, get out and engage our elderly community. My sister has a part-time job where she goes around and she sits with elderly people and interact with them. It's very important to keep our elders healthy and alive, and one of the ways we do that is keeping them active. That loneliness can lead to depression. That loneliness can lead to anxiety. All right, a lot of them suffer from dementia, and they're not getting the treatment that they need because once again, we legislate for guns, but we don't legislate for mental health. We don't legislate so that these people can get the psychotropic drugs that they need. We don't legislate that they can get the aid and the comfort that they need. Okay, so again, it's not always about the tool. A gun's a tool. That's all it is. A gun is a tool. You can look at it however you want, but bottom line, a gun's a tool. If you sit that gun on the table and don't go near it for 100 years, guess what that gun gonna do? It's gonna stay right on that table and do nothing. It ain't gonna kill nobody. All right? You pick that gun up and put it in the holster of an individual that has a level head, good sense, good judgment. 9 times out of 10, that gun will stay in that holster throughout their whole career. But you put that gun in the hands of a mentally disturbed individual that don't have control over themselves, that's dealing with depression, that's dealing with anxiety, that's dealing with dementia, that's not getting the psychological and physical help that they need. 9 times out of 10, either that person's going to turn that gun on themselves or they're going to turn that gun on somebody else. So bottom line, a gun is a tool. And in the right hands, it could do just like a hammer, just like a nail, just like a screwdriver, just like a drill gun. It can do some good work. But in the wrong hands, just like a hammer, just like a nail, just like a screw gun, it can hurt somebody. So what we need to do right now, we need to focus on the mental health of our families. We need to focus on the mental health of our friends. We need to focus on the mental health of our neighbors. And we need to focus on the mental health of our country. We need to look at our children, how they deal with how this whole, these episodes with law enforcement are stressing out our children, how they're not open to seeing the police officers. When I was young, I used to love seeing cops around because I felt safe around it. But nowadays, the average kid don't feel safe around a police officer. You even talk about the police and brutality. It's anxiety. Can you imagine the anxiety that the average young black American feels after this whole campaign of stop and frisk? We need to open up to our women, fellas. Listen to their concerns and their problems. Like I said, communication, there's more than verbal communication. There's body language. It's the odors that we give off to each other. All right? Facial expressions. Communication is very important. Same with you, ladies. You need to respect and honor the manhood of your man and don't try to stomp on his manhood all the time because that plays right into his mental health issues. And our elderly, we got to take care of our elderly. We got to call them. We got to visit them. We got to go around them. We got to make sure that they're active. I said this before. Even if you take them for a walk around the block to get that blood and that heart pumping, let them know that somebody care about them. Okay? It's very important. Very important. The mental health of our people are very important. But again, that's why I chose that title. I'm okay, you're okay, but they're not. Because we got to stop trying to throw it on everybody else. Oh, that's the next man. That's his son. His son is depressed because he's getting picked on. Oh, that's that's her husband. That's depressed because he ain't got a job or he can't afford to take him on vacation. Oh, no, that's his wife. She just had the baby. She just stressed out. Them kids are stressing her out. Nah, that's his grandmother. They don't go visit her, you know. No, mental health affects us all, you know, and we've got to be aware of it. Let me check my time here. Gil Scott is bringing up the vibe in the background. Okay. It is 3 o'clock. Time for me to get out of here. Again, let's look out for each other. Mental health, that's the key. That's the issue right here. You know, before I go, we want to send a shout out once again to our system, Cologne, and bringing. That's right, we're in this together, Babs. You know, bringing the attention to what's going on in Puerto Rico. And how the officials are in those hotels chilling hard and nobody's getting help. It's a daggone shame, and we need to let them know that we saw that. You know, if you can help, you know, seek out the help. Try to get some help to Puerto Rico. Florida still needs help, and now New Orleans is getting hit today. I think the storm was supposed to hit today. So we want to send a shout out to New Orleans, batten down the hatches. If they told you to evacuate, get away from those coastlines. Once again, shout out to the families in Vegas, whoever lost loved ones, and we want to send a shout out to the injured and hope for a speedy recovery. Don't forget our brother Tariq Nasheed, the producer of the Hidden Colors series. His film 1804 should be coming out soon about the Haitian Revolution. Support it if you can. It should be, I think, advanced sales are going on now online. And there was somebody. Yeah, so advance sales should be going on for his album if you can pick it up and be a part of it. Of course, once again, I ask that you support my movement. The album is still on sale. Tears is still on sale. I got a blues coming out pretty soon. And I told you about the gospel stuff that I'm doing with my little brother. And my niece got a video that I'm in the process of editing and producing for her as well. So look for the work, and we hope that you just keep supporting the effort. Once again, this is The Mic is Live. Our unsung hero today is our sister, Miss Cologne, for bringing us that video. Again, she was an Army officer who went down there on her own dime. She visited 36 provinces in Puerto Rico and saw that nobody was helping those people. And she took it upon herself to make that video to show that the FEMA and Army personnel are sitting in the hotels chilling and not trying to do nothing. And she went down there and showed them how it's done. So shout out to her, shout out to the mayor of Puerto Rico and everybody else that's trying to get it done, you know. Hey, look, I'm out of here. Thanks for joining me again. I'll see you next Saturday at 2 o'clock. And remember, don't get caught up in the lies that they're telling you that you forget to prepare for the reality that's about to come. Peace out. I love you, and I'll see you.